Good day, everyone. Eric Olsen from Helps Law Firm for Seniors and Disabled Persons. Welcome to our YouTube live channel today on October 20th, 2025. My name's Eric Olsen, lead attorney at Helps. I want to welcome you. If you're a new time viewer, a double welcome. So what Helps is a national law firm. What we do is we have two purposes. Number one is we represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay under a federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that provides that if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors have to leave you alone. And so when people find out about us, they call us on the phone. We ask them some questions. When they enroll, we click a button and they're enrolled immediately. They get an email from us confirming they're a member of Helps. They get us the creditors they owe money to. They don't want to hear from anymore. We send them out what's called a cease and desist letter. And that letter provides that they can only talk to the attorney and not you. Okay. And then we represent you ongoing, literally for the rest of your life, so you don't have to worry about dealing with collector harassment. And our second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. And that's one reason we have these YouTube live videos. So we can talk to you about these issues so you understand what your rights are. There's a lack of information provided to seniors and a lot of misinformation given to seniors. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat feature, and I'll ask them, and I try to answer them right away. And if I happen to forget, then you just remind me and I'll find it. So Danica asked, she's being sued. She has two cars that are free and clear, 2010 and 2013. Should I do anything to protect them in Maryland? I'm starting to worry about this. I'm a client. Thanks. Okay. So it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors, if they were to sue you and get a judgment, to try to take your car. They don't do that for a variety of different reasons. Uh, Almost all states have what's called exemption laws, which are laws that protect a certain amount of equity in property. For example, a certain amount of equity in a car, or a certain amount of equity in a home, a certain amount of equity in household goods, or things like that. But it's simply not the practice of credit card or banks or lenders to go after a person's personal property. Like if you had a car that was free and clear, maybe worth 5,000, the exemption in your state was 2,000, therefore you got 3,000 equity in the car over and above the protection provided in your state. Are they going to try to take the car? No, because they have to go through a specific procedure to that, and it's complicated, and they simply don't do it. Now, is it theoretically possible? Yeah, but in 44 years or 46 years of practice, I've only seen it done a couple times, and only in one little town in Southeast Oregon. So it just doesn't happen. Okay, so you shouldn't worry about the cars. Other reasons, maybe you have title with you and a husband or a wife, and the debt is only against one of the spouses. There's a lot of reasons why they don't have to go to your car. Now, they'll go after the car. Now, that's completely different if you had a loan on the car and it was financed by the bank. Then, yeah, they have a right to come pick up the car, and it's a lot easier for them to do that. But otherwise, it's a pretty complicated process, and they simply don't do it. Okay? But if someone were to tell a senior, yeah, you've got SX equity in your car, they could take your car. I mean, yeah, that could strike fear in a senior's heart, and they might think, oh, I better pay this debt. I don't want to lose my car. When in fact, in the real world, that wouldn't happen. And so what we talk about, it helps us what happens in the real world. Okay. Um, the law can provide, if your speed limit is 55 miles an hour, if you're going 56, are you going to get a ticket? The answer is no. Or law, you could say someone, well, if you walk outside in a cloudy day, you could hit by a bolt of lightning. Do you worry about that? No, you don't. Okay, so no, you're not going to shouldn't have a problem with that car. The nice thing about when people enroll in Helps, you're a client literally forever. So if you're worried or scared, ever have a question, you can always call on the phone. We'll talk to you. We'll go over this stuff. Okay, we don't give legal advice. We give legal information, but our information is very basic, and it's going to be able to answer your questions. Okay, so here's a note from a video. I think this was on one of our videos from Senior Living, and it says, I'm in Nebraska. My bank had approximately $400 in my account, and on October 16th, I was in my bank to take some of the money out, and I was told my balance was 54 cents. I'm on Social Security, which is directly deposited into one account, and I work from home, and I get a stipend of money that goes directly deposited into a different checking account. And this was told, the IRS levied my account and took $350 out of my checking, which was completely upset me. Also, I received an attorney writ of judgment against me as well regarding a medical bill. That again, I wasn't aware of. Can an attorney please help me? I can't afford this. And the alleged tax bill was from 2012, 13 years ago later. So please, what do I do now? So this is a good point to talk about protected income. Okay. Um, your Social Security is protected. No one can garnish it. So is your pension. So is your disability. So your VA benefits. They're safe. They're protected by federal law and some state laws too. Now, what happens when the money gets deposited into a checking account? Okay. Well, there was a federal law or rule put into effect in 2012 that tells banks that if they get a writ of garnishment, they're supposed to examine your bank account. And if they have a bank account for you, and if money came in there from a federal source such as Social Security, then to take that sum times two and protect that amount automatically from garnishment, regardless of what other funds are in there or where they came from. So, for example, if you got $1,400 in Social Security each month, $1,400 times two is $2,800. That sum is protected in your bank account from garnishment in the event someone were to sue you and get a judgment. Now, they just can't garnish you out of the blue. They'd have to sue you and get a judgment. And if they're going to trying to garnish you, they could. They have to know where you bank. There's no place where they can magically go to find out where you bank. So, but this person says that they had $300 taken out of their account. Well, now it was taken out. Okay. It was told the IRS levied my account and took $350 out of my checking account. That's possible. Unlikely. IRS normally doesn't do a lot of levies on seniors that are getting Social Security. Um, so he had two different bank accounts. The one to which his Social Security went, and the one to which his income went from some other job. So technically, if he got sued and there was a judgment and the creditor tried to garnish the account, they couldn't get any money out of this account to which Social Security went as long as the balance was less than twice the amount of Social Security. They could take the money out of the account to which his regular wages went. He didn't sound like he got a whole lot of wages. So for that reason, we always tell our clients that it's best to have your money in one account. That's the account to which Social Security goes. Now, if you did owe IRS taxes, first off, the IRS has 10 years to collect the taxes. So when he says they're 12 years old, that makes me suspect about the information he's giving me, okay? Because after 10 years, they can't collect the tax legally. But let's say he did owe the tax and they did take money out. If his only income is Social Security and maybe a little bit of other money, he could qualify for what's currently not collectible status. And you could actually call the IRS, and it's likely they would agree to release those garnished funds to him. We talked to you about that. But if your only income is Social Security and then money, this guy isn't going to, and a little bit of other money, he shouldn't have anything to worry about. We'll call him back. We'll go over this. Or if this is a situation you're having, call us and we'll go over this with you. Okay, be able to help you. So John asked, if Trump gets legislation passed to require no income tax for people making less than $150,000, what about back taxes that you owe? It wouldn't affect back taxes, but once again, and I'm not sure that he's going to pass such a law. I kind of doubt that. I haven't heard that law. I haven't heard about that one being passed. But if your income, if you're on Social Security or a pension or you're retired and you have income of around $2,500 or less and you're single, and about $35 or less, or even a little bit more than that, and you're married, it's very possible you could qualify to get on what's called currently not collectible status, CNC status. And often, especially if you have lower income, you can do that over the phone. You can contact the IRS, go over your numbers with them, and they can put you on a status where they're not going to try to collect from you anymore. We have an email that explains that. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't pay your taxes. You should if you can, but if you can't, IRS is protected and has a provision to put you on a status where they don't want you to go without food or medicine or basic needs to pay taxes. Okay, you can avoid that if you needed to. Um, and we've got emails that explain how to get on currently not collectible status. But it's very unusual to see the IRS try to garnish people that are on Social Security only. They simply don't do it. And most people that are on Social Security only, a lot of them can qualify to get on currently not collectible status. So Richard asked, does it have any effect or possibly preempt any further action by sending a cease and desist letter to a credit card bank that is charged off but has not yet proceeded with any action? Um, well, there's no scientific study on that. I suspect that it makes it less likely, but it may not have much of an impact. The bottom line is you've got to figure out, well, what's the worst they can do? They can turn it over to a debt collector. And if you get it turned over to a debt collector, if you're part of HELPS, we're going to send a cease and desist letter out to that collector, tell them to leave you alone. If you got sued, they're not going to be able to collect from you if your income, Social Security, or pension. So no matter what they do, you don't really have anything to worry about. But to answer your question, yeah, I think practically speaking, if someone were to, at the bank were to read it and they realize that your income was protected, they may not turn it over to a collector to try to collect on. But a lot of times they just batch them and send them over, and you're you're one among thousands of collections that the bank sends over to a debt collector. Do you have to give a collection letter your checking account info if they ask for it in post-judgment discovery? It depends. But once again, Tank, as long as the money in your bank account is less than twice the amount of your federal benefits, you could give him your checking account information all day long. He can't get any money out of your account. Okay, so it doesn't matter. So if you got 2,000 in Social Security, 4,000 in your checking account is protected, even if money in that checking account came from another source. Okay. State of Michigan UIA is billing me for just under 10,000 for unemployment payments I received during COVID. Well, they can't take your Social Security or your pension. It's protected. So you may not need to worry about that at all. The only problem we have in Michigan is if Michigan has a program where you can get a tax refund, property tax refund, even if you're renting. And if you're a senior, have income under a certain amount, you can either get it as part of a tax return you file or some other form you can file. And I'm sure that if you file to get that refund and you owe the state of Michigan some money for unemployment, they probably got their system coordinated that they would take that refund money and apply it to what you owe. Now, they can also do it, creditors can also file writs of garnishment to get that refund. Therefore, in Michigan, we tell people if you're husband and wife and you're entitled to that refund, and maybe the judgment is just against the husband, just have the wife file for the tax returns, not the husband. Therefore, the refund would come in her name. The state wouldn't seize it to pay those debts. Okay. So this person contacts us from California, and they say, I can't afford my car loan anymore. That's pretty common. We hear that all the time. I tried to get the loan company to refinance, but they said they couldn't do it. I have 3 cars. My insurance has gotten way too expensive to afford 3 cars anymore. Now I'm now 30 days late. On one of my cars, the payment is $950 a month. I just can't do it any longer. I'm 62 and on fixed income. My house is in a trust and not my name. Would like to know what I can do to resolve this problem or what should be my next step. Well, you can talk to, and we can talk about that. But if you had 3 cars and they were all financed by different lenders, maybe you let 2 of them go back and just keep the one. But Yeah, there'll be an answer to your question. If you have a car payment you can't afford, you're upside down, which means you can't sell it and pay off the loan, you can stop making the payment, let it go back. They're going to eventually sell the car. They're going to send you what's called a deficiency notice, letting them know that you owe a certain amount of money, a balance that you owe. Um, and you don't, if you're on protected income, you're not going to need to pay that. You turn that into helps. We send them a letter. They're going to leave you alone. So, and we also have an email that we call it. Sometimes we call it affordable transportation. Sometimes I talk to seniors and maybe they have just not a lot in Social Security, maybe $1,500. It's the time they pay rent and some basics. They really can't afford a car payment. Well, it is possible to get a car. I call it to buy cash for a car. Okay. When I first started Helps back in 2012, I used to tell people, $1,000, you could get a pretty decent car. Now it might be a little bit more than that, but you get on either Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, and they're owner only, runs good, and it's pretty. It's possible to get a car that's pretty decent shape. Now it may have a lot of miles on it, but a lot of these older model Hondas and Toyotas that just go forever. Okay, and I know, just so it's possible to get a car for cash. They may save up a little bit of money to be able to get that. So you don't necessarily have to go without transportation. But then, since Helps was founded in 2012, now we have Uber and Lyft and all kinds of other alternate transportation options available. Okay. Okay. Each month, Pam D says, I received 3,000 hospital bill from the 1990s. Later, I became disabled and received a small disability check. I can't afford this hospital bill. Well, if it's from the 1990s, I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations is right. You technically may still owe the bill, but they can't sue you. A creditor can still try to call you and try to get you to pay a debt, but the law wouldn't allow them to sue you. See, most states have what's called a statute of limitations that tells a creditor that they have to sue and to sue you within a certain amount of time. Okay, and a lot of times that could be 5 years, 6 years is a good average for a certain. You could kind of type up your state statute of limitations to file a lawsuit for a medical debt, and it'll depend on the state. Now, if they had a judgment, then a lot of times in some states there's a limit to how long they can collect on the judgment. Sometimes they can renew it, but the bottom line is if you're on disability or Social Security, that income is protected, Pam, and they can't take it from you, so you don't need to worry about that debt. Okay, or any other debt that you owe. It's protected. You'll be safe. And if you have any questions, you call us, 855, where is it? 855-435-7787. We'll go over your situation. Okay. What we do is we represent seniors who owe debt or disabled persons in order to stop collectors from harassing them. They have to leave you alone. They have to deal with us and not you. So this person contacts us from Illinois and they say, I have significant credit card debt along with other debt that I can't afford to pay. I'm an 81-year-old widow and not able to work any longer. I need help. Well, that's what we're here for. Helps. So what does HELP stand for? Where's it right here? It stands for Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors. Help eliminate legal problems for seniors. Because you don't need to worry. Our most important message is that your Social Security, your pension, your disability, your VA benefit, all of the forms of income are protected by federal law. It's available for your needs. It doesn't need to be used to pay a debt you can't afford to pay. And then our second message is we can protect you from collectors harassing you. You don't have to deal with these collectors anymore. They got to leave you alone. And the way Helps works is that we represent seniors ongoing. It's not just one time. So that means if you ever have a question or concern, you call us. Or let's say you gave us your creditors, we sent them a cease and desist letter. They leave you alone. But now, a year or two later, or 6 months or whatever, you get a new collection notice from a new debt collector. then you get us that information. We're going to send a new letter to that new debt collector so they leave you alone. Let's say you got sued a year from now or 2 years from now on an old debt. I've already talked to a couple people this morning that were sued. I tell them, okay, I say, first of all, you don't have anything to worry about. Your income's protected. Explain to them why. So we need the first 2 or 3 or 4 pages of the lawsuit. The name of the attorney, the case number, the attorney's name and address. And then when we get that, we're going to send a letter to that attorney letting them know that your income is protected, that you can't afford to pay the debt, you're not going to pay it. We understand that they're going to get a judgment. We tell them that. And we remind them of the protected nature of your bank account. Now, we don't really need to do that, but we just do it anyway. Because your bank knows the law and they're going to protect your bank account from garnishment. Now, if you ask your bank manager, he's not going to understand that rule, but there's a department of the bank that will, that deals with garnishments. So, and I would guess 999 out of 1,000 attorneys don't understand that rule, even though it's been in effect since 2012. Now, why is that? Well, attorneys don't know everything. There's a lot of different areas of the law that attorney practices in a certain area, and that's where he focuses on and forgets everything else. So attorneys aren't going to know about the fact that your income is automatically protected. A few might, but not very many. Very few. Even though that's been in effect now since 2012, 13 years, 14 years? If you're currently not collectible for federal income tax, how can that be applied towards state tax? Good question. Well, and it's an easy answer. A state tax collector, John, cannot touch your Social Security or your pension or your disability. It's your Social Security. And if they were to try to garnish your bank account is protected just like it is from a credit card judgment holder up to twice the amount of your Social Security benefits or your federal benefits deposited in your bank. Now, when I say federal benefits, that's if you're a retired federal worker, or if you get VA benefits, or you work for the post office, which is a federal job, or the railroad, which is a federal job. Twice that sum that you get each month is automatically protected by your bank from garnishment, including from a state tax collector. Okay? Now, is a state tax collector going to tell you that? Probably not. They can't do anything. Okay? Why do collectors still try to sue you even if my income is protected? Well, Larry, they count on you not knowing the law. They count on you not listening to me, or you being not understanding what the law is, and that when you get a notice that you think that you're going to have to pay it, so you make arrangements to pay it. And I'm here to educate seniors on what their rights are and why they don't need to worry. Okay? And frankly, there's a concerted effort by a lot of persons to withhold this information from seniors. A debt collector isn't going to tell you this. Okay? Even a debt management or debt settlement company. If you're listening to me and you're involved with debt management or debt settlement, and you're making them a payment. My question to you is this: when you enroll with them, did they tell you, well, you really don't need our help because all your Social Security is protected. No one can take it. No, they didn't tell you that, with rare exceptions. If they told you that, you realize you wouldn't need their help and you wouldn't enroll with them and they wouldn't be making money off you. And it's the same for the profit or nonprofit ones. They don't tell seniors the complete truth. Okay? So John asked, well, what about my home? Well, just like I mentioned about cars earlier, it's not almost every state has what's called a homestead exemption, which is an amount of equity that's protected under state law from a creditor getting at it. Some states have unlimited homestead exemptions. Texas, Florida, a lot of the states in the Midwest, Oklahoma, North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, I believe, and other states as well. And then some of the other states, they have amounts of money. For California, I think virtually in every county, it's at least 700,000 in equity is protected. In Oregon, I think it went up to 150,000, and in Nevada, I think it's 400,000. It depends on the state. But even if you have equity in a home over and above the exemption in the state where you live, John, it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to try to take your home. They don't do it for a lot of reasons. One is they would have to pay off an existing mortgage, and then they'd have to pay your homestead exemption, and it's very complicated. So I just don't see it happening. And you can always call and talk to us. Okay, maybe you own it with you and your wife, and the debt's just against you. Nothing they could really do. Okay, so we go over this with people. Okay, so Jimmy's asking for a friend. If you owe child support and you're collecting Social Security disability, can they take your pension to make up for the arrearage? Um, let me answer that question. There's different forms of Social Security. There's regular Social Security, there's Social Security disability, and there's what's called SSI. Now, SSI is for those persons that don't have enough quarters to get Social Security, or they never were allowed to collect Social Security, or never worked. And so that's almost like a welfare benefit, but it's paid through Social Security. And if you get SSI, no one can touch it. IRS can't touch it. Social Security, past due child support can't touch it. Now, if you get regular Social Security or Social Security disability, it is possible if you owe past due child support for for your Social Security to be garnished between 50 to 60%. It depends on the facts. Will they always do that? Not necessarily. Sometimes you could contact the district attorney's office that's trying to collect the Social Security, and they'll agree to accept a lower sum. Now, can they take your pension? I think theoretically they can. I can't recall a person that owes past due child support having their pension being garnished for past due child support. I've seen it happen for Social Security, but not for a pension. So a person would need to talk to us. There may be some other ways to get out of it. It gets a little complicated, too complicated to go into it in this type of format. But we don't see this happen very often. I don't talk to very many seniors that owe past due child support that are having this problem. It's pretty darn rare. So this person from Florida is 71, getting Social Security and a federal pension. They write in, after Hurricane Milton, I had to get some home repairs done. The insurance didn't cover everything, so I got a high interest. They got a high interest loan, and also they owe money to on their Social Security. Can't afford either one. Um, we went over the fact that their home is protected in Florida. If it's under a certain size, a lot, like I think a 1 acre, 2 acre, something like that, it's protected, unlimited value and protected. We email them what we do and some information, and then they contacted us, looks like last week, wondering about a program. She has like 4 or 5 debt she owes, including Discover, Lowe's, and a couple more. Looks like she went over again what were the problems she had with her insurance company and owing some money. And want to know what we do. It says, paralegal put in, when we went over what we do, is there a fee? Yes, the fees are based on household income. Do we need the dollar amount that she owes? No. So what are helps fees? Well, first off, we don't turn anyone away that needs our help, that qualifies for a program. The most a person would pay would be $40 for 24 months, $20 for 24 months, free thereafter. And if you have under a certain amount of income, it could be $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months, free thereafter, or $20 for 24 months, $10 for 24 months, and free thereafter. But we make it work for you. We're here we want you to be protected. And remember, when you enroll in HELPS, you don't have to pay these credit cards or these old debts. You stop paying those. And when we enroll you over the phone. Um, when you decide to enroll, we'll keep you on the phone. We'll click a button, and you'll get an email from us that says, welcome to HELPS. Confirms you're a member of HELPS. Has all our contact information, address, phone number, email addresses, and gives instructions how to get us the collectors. You can text them, fax them, email, or mail them to us. Okay? But you're a client immediately. So if we hang up the phone and a creditor will call you and you tell them you're represented by, you could tell them you're represented by HELPS and they call us, we can confirm immediately that you're our client. And it looks like the call dropped with that person, but they called back Friday and we enrolled them in helps. So yeah, you can always call us with questions. Our number is down below here, 855-435-7787 or 855 helps US or helps us. So this person contacts us from Nevada. They found us on the internet and has credit card debt, and they get Social Security. She does a little independent contracting, but doesn't have any contracts now, and she is struggling to make payments with her credit cards. Says she's done a lot of research on her different options and wants to know what's the best thing to do for her. So let me just stop right now. Okay, I started Helps in 2012. Before that, I had a large law firm that's still in existence and filed tens of thousands of bankruptcies. So that's what generated Helps. You know, seniors would come into me and I'd say, you can't afford a bankruptcy. You don't need to file bankruptcy. But I knew when I sent them home, the creditor was going to harass them. So finally, we came up with this idea that, you know, we could represent people under this federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Provides if you have an attorney, then collectors got to leave you alone. So people can enroll in Helps. They have an attorney, which is Helps, and then we send out a cease and desist letter, and these creditors got to leave you alone. So that's and we have, but in order for it to work, we have to represent you. We want to represent you ongoing, not just one time, because you might get a collection notice 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road from a new debt collector, or you might get sued down the road. And we want to be able to tell you why you don't need to worry. So, and we always want to be available if you have a question or concern or worry. So that's what we do. We represent you ongoing. Okay. She wanted to know what's the best thing to do. So sometimes I'll tell people, well, okay, you can handle it on your own. You could file bankruptcy or it helps. Well, seniors don't want to handle it on their own for a lot of different reasons. Filing bankruptcy, a lot of them don't want to do that. It can't afford it for one thing. Um, Sometimes it could get them in more problems than it's worth. And the third option is the helps program. So a lot of times helps is a no-brainer. You know, we represent you so you don't have to deal with these collectors anymore. So we went over what we do and explained to her how her bank account is protected. We sent her a bunch of emails and she said, I'll review the emails. And she said she'd call us back when she's ready. She was happy and thankful for all the information given. Um, then she called back on June 14th, spoke to another paralegal at Helps. Ready to enroll. We called and connected. So she explained how she'd called us a few weeks ago. She watched the YouTube videos that we'd sent her, and we explained about a program. We have a program called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. How you can rebuild your credit. So they want to know, is there a way to not make payments on the debt she owes on the car that they wouldn't take the car? And we explained no. It's a car loan that's secured by the car, and if she doesn't make the car loan, they could repossess the car. Okay. So what is a motion to compel you to answer post-judgment discovery? Well, if someone gets a judgment against you, different states, some states have rules to try to get information about your assets, and a lot of times they'll send that voluntarily. And if you don't comply, then they may get a judge to sign an order compelling you to answer. We go over that with people. Um, with our clients, there's nothing really for them to hide. There's nothing they can get from you. and we'll go over that with you. So it kind of depends on the state what that is, but but there's really nothing to hide from creditors. And if you're a senior on protected income, um, all the more reason in Texas. Okay, Texas has really broad protections, but then they have some. Sometimes in Texas they'll have what's a court-appointed receiver, and it sends a scary letter. And you're going to contact that court-appointed receiver, and you're going to make arrangements to pay the debt. Well, it doesn't have to tell you your protected income. In Texas, your home's protected. They can't garnish your wages. Then they have kind of like a $50,000 wild card that protects any other assets up to 50. And that covers about everyone. So Texas is usually not a problem. But they have some other court procedures that if you don't understand the law and your protections, it could scare you into picking up the phone and calling these guys and make arrangements to pay the debt when you really don't have to. So this person called us, looks like way back in March. And she says she is sad to say she must surrender her vehicle. It feels like it's her last bit of independence she is giving away. Well, you could probably get another vehicle. I talked about that a few minutes ago. But anyway, we discussed the process and options, reassured her that now she has a plan and a goal for a more affordable option. She's doing what is best for her. She was thankful for the reassurance. We do a lot of reassurance that helps because we're always willing to talk to you. And we don't, you'll be totally relieved after you talk to us. Okay? For the reassurance and time to share our ideas and options. She will call back closer to when the repossess process begins next month, since she is still current. Um, we sent an email about how to surrender a vehicle that explains the process. And then she contacted us last Wednesday. Can no longer afford the car payment, but got a new used car with money earned from a small job. See, she got the car replaced. Won't have a car payment. Just have to pay a little bit of insurance. She'll be fine. Wants to voluntarily give up the car with a car payment. Worried about a tow truck having repo on it. Man, that's not the worry. Maybe there's a mechanically wrong with your car. Repo cars get towed away all the time. And we enrolled her in helps. And in her case, it was at a discounted sum. So we made it work for her. And she was very relieved to get our help. So this person contacts us from Ohio. Okay. I was involved with scammers a few years ago, claiming to be involved, claiming to be with PCH. I'm not sure what that acronym is. Maybe one of you can tell me. PCH. I was in a bad place in my life, depressed. And one of her children had passed away, and a grandchild, and my husband. I succumbed to these scammers' requests thinking I could win a lot of money and help my other grown kids in various organizations that were important to me and bring myself back to a life worth living. It didn't take long to realize that I was being scammed and stopped working with these people, which time they started threatening and bullying me shortly after they took out a $20,000 personal loan in the name of a certain bank. Um, they told me to pay off the credit cards I'd opened to do. Anyway, they had taken this money from her. I thought I was doing a good thing but they ended up taking her money. I can explain more if I get to speak to you on the phone. There's a lot of scammers that take advantage of people, and there's a lot of people that try to scam seniors. And in this one, they tried to scam her by using her good credit, and then she ended up owing a bunch of debt on her credit cards and maybe some other debt as well. Which, since she voluntarily turned over her credit to someone to use that, there's not any way she's going to get out of that, except that if she's on Social Security and a pension, her income is protected. She may have made a mistake, and that was not good, but she is not going to have to pay the debt. They're not going to, the credit card companies aren't going to be able to, they could sue her, but they're not going to be able to collect money. She's going to have her Social Security and her pension. And she learned a valuable lesson, but it's not the end of the world. Now, if you've been scammed, you're not the only person. I talked to a lot of people that have been scammed, and a lot of them are quite wise. It's just life happens. So if anyone's asking you to go down and get a debit card from Target to send them money, or to send them money for whatever reason, if it's a romance scam and someone's asking you for money, realize that you're being scammed. I'm 74. I've been doing this for a long time. I've just dealt with so many seniors that have been victims of scammers. There's people that just make a living off of that, and the worst ones are the romance scammers. But it doesn't matter. Are you going to win you're going to win some award, or they're going to help you. They need some money to pay taxes, so you get this award. There's all kinds of reasons. Or maybe you got a grandkid that's in jail and they need to come up money for bail, and you think, oh, I need to help. Okay, could be anything. Okay, I think Publishers Clearinghouse has gone bankrupt because. So yeah, there's a lot of scams out there, and so we tell anyone if there's a senior, if you ever suspect you're being scammed, you can call us on the phone. You don't have to be a member of Helps to call us, and you can just call and say, I think I'm being scammed. Can I go over this with you, and we'll talk to you about it. So if you suspect that you're being scammed, you better call us, and you very likely are being scammed. Okay. So this person contacts us from Ohio. Again, different person, but it's from someone from Ohio. They're 74. They get Social Security and VA benefits that total around $3,000. They got a home that's worth about $300,000, and they owe $200,000 on it. They've been using a debt relief program since 2023, and they pay them $317 a month. I'm willing to bet that when they enrolled with that debt management program, debt relief program, that they never told this person that their income was protected, their Social Security and their VA benefits. They never do. If they told you that, you would realize you don't need their help, or you have other options available to you. But instead, they sign people up. Now, I've talked to people making $1,200 paying $300 to debt management companies, putting them into utter poverty, making a payment. They don't care. Okay, she said, this person says, I don't know if it's a she or her, it doesn't matter. She or he. It says, uh, Discover will not negotiate. They received a summons 3 weeks ago from Discover, and they were sued. And they said, I would like to cancel with the debt relief. And my husband has medical debt, and he may be interested in our services. So when you enroll in Helps, you can either enroll individually or together. It's not there's if you enroll together, there's not an extra charge. And if one of you enrolls and the other one later decides to enroll later, we can add them into your file or her to your file without any cost. Okay. And we sent them some emails. They said they would like to review those first, which is fine. A lot of people call us one, two, three, four, five, 6 times before they decide to enroll. I want you to feel comfortable about what we do. We reviewed their income protections, their home protections, their VL protections. And we sent them an email, why not to fear the lawsuit. Then they called back on October 17th. And it looks like the wife only wanted to enroll. But we would have told her, or told them, if he later decides to enroll, we can always add him to the file with no extra charge. It looks like she had at least one credit card that she wanted to keep paying. See, when you enroll in help, sometimes we'll ask you, is there a credit card that you want to keep that has a smaller balance, or you don't owe anything on? And if the answer is yes, we explain to you that you can keep that credit card even when you enroll in helps, as long as it's not backed by a bank with whom you have another credit card you're not going to pay. See, in bankruptcy, if you owe a debt, even if you owe them nothing and you have a credit line there or a credit card with them, they're going to cut you off because the banks subscribe to a service and lets them know if someone filed bankruptcy. So they're going to be fine. So this person contacts us from Texas, 74 on Social Security, and have a pension, and they're renting where they live. Oh yeah. It says he is taking care of a young mother and her two kids. It's not a romantic relationship. He's just being a good Samaritan. He was with a debt relief company that had him paying about $700 a month for the debts he had. And it says very kind man. And we explained to him how we can protect him, and his income was protected, and he didn't need to pay the debt relief company anymore. And he stopped paying them and signed up with helps. He had $700 more in his pocket, plus what he was paying on these other creditors. So this person contacts us from Delaware. They stopped making payments, it says, about 3 months ago. We went over what we do and sent them some other emails about helps. See, we've got like a 400 or 500 emails on different topics, and we're happy to send those to people that explain the law in different areas or explain what we do. So, on all kinds of areas, you got a timeshare you can't afford, what happens if a home gets foreclosed, or how to protect a home for children, what if you owe taxes to the state or IRS, property taxes, reverse mortgage, does that make sense for me? Transportation issues, emails that explain about debt management and debt settlement companies. We got a bunch on those. General emails about helps and what we do. So you can always contact us and we can send you information, links to videos and articles about helps. You can always listen to our YouTube videos today or the ones in the past, or Monday through Thursday. Okay, I'll go on this one. I guess he's moving to Delaware the next month. And it said he'll call back the first week in December to enroll. This is what happened last week. Okay, he said, and apparently he lost one of his siblings, passed away. His friend referred him to speak with someone that gave him our number and told him his income was protected. And we called this guy back on the 16th of October and left a message. And he called us back on the 16th and said he doesn't want to wait, ready to enroll. We enrolled him. That's the nice thing. When we enroll people, we just do it over the phone. It takes a few minutes. So when you call us, we get asked basic information. We save it, and when you call back, we know who you are. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And then when you decide to enroll, all we're going to need is your complete name, your mailing address, the month you were born, last four digits of your social security number, debit card name, number, and expiration date. The payment won't begin until at least 30 to 60 days in the future. And then we click a button while you're on the phone. You get an email from us confirming you're a member of HELPS. It has all our contact information, address, and it gives instructions how to get us the collectors. A lot of other information too. Okay, person contacts us from California. Looks like a couple. One is 65, one is 63. Husband gets 2,300 in Social Security. The wife gets 1,040 and 600 in a pension. They're buying a home. They own the home, and looks like the husband had medical issues and moved in with their family, and they rented their home out. But then they moved back into the home 3.5 years later. Apparently, the tenants had kind of trashed the home. We talked about how their income was protected and their home was protected. They got a letter from someone that's suing her for some medical debt. So they don't need to worry about the lawsuit. If they get a judgment, creditor probably doesn't know where they worked or where their bank account. But if they did, twice the amount of Social Security they get is protected automatically from garnishment. And they got together, they get 23, 33, about 3,400 in Social Security. Times two would be $6,800. Is protected automatically, even if they had money in that account that came from another source. So they're not going to worry. They're not going to need to worry about the lawsuit. And when they enroll in HELPS, they're going to give us the lawsuit. We're going to send a letter to the attorney who sued them, letting him know that we understand they're going to get a judgment, that their income is protected, and they're going to be fine. They don't need to worry. Okay? And I say that to you. If you're in that situation, give us a call. We'll go over your situation with you. Okay? Excuse me. Person contacts us from Washington. Yeah, if you notice, I'm talking with people in all over the country. We can help you. So the income is $1,400 and the rent is $2,000. They got credit card debt uh, and some business debt. We explained how their Social Security is protected, and he's using his 401k to pay the rent, but he's trying to move to get a cheaper place as soon as possible. We told him what we did, and it looks like he enrolled right then. Now, we would have probably told him if he's getting only $1,400 in Social Security, he should be applying for Section 8 or subsidized housing. And we have emails that talk about that. We have an email that even tells you how to get on certain parts of the country. You can get on that earlier than others. You don't have to live generally where the subsidized housing is. Some places they give a preference to people that live in the area, but in some places it doesn't matter where you live. The reason it doesn't matter where you live is they want to encourage people being able to move. They understand that some people may have family in a different area and they need to get back to their family, so they want to have Section 8 open to people in different areas. You don't have to necessarily live in that area. A lot of times there's a waiting period, but sometimes the waiting period can be shortened or waived. A lot of times it can be for seniors that are in need to prevent them from being homeless. And we have emails that explain that you contacts will give to you. But in this case, whereas He's only getting 1,400 in Social Security, but his rent's 2,000. Yeah, he needs to get out of there. He can't. His 401k, which is a private retirement, which is protected, it's being depleted each month, paying for that rent. Okay, you got just a God, time flies. Okay, okay. This person calls us. They said the lender used a trick to take money out of my account. They said that was Lightstream, whoever that is. They used another merchant ID to pull money from my account, running my account into hundreds of dollars negative. I immediately called my bank, gave them the dated letter and cease and desist, uh, and the bank didn't honor the money being taken out. They got it back. But we sent him another email on, we suggested to him that you might want to get a new bank account, or at the very least use the same bank account, same bank, but get a new bank account number that they don't have access to. Because sometimes some high interest lender or a sketchy lender would, even if you put a stop payment, they will try to take money out of your account later on. Now, theoretically, they could get sued by that, doing that, but who has the money to sue these guys? And if it's a small amount of money, who's going to represent them? So sometimes it's easier just to get a new account number. Now, you don't have to necessarily go to a new bank, but you can use the same bank and a new account number. Therefore, they're not going to be able to get the money out. So I'll do one more. It says, person contacts us from California. I'm being sued by a debt collection agency, and I have to answer by October 27th. I'm doing this on my own. Lawyers are too expensive, so I've been using GPT. I've already sent a letter and fax to confer the attorney's office in Chicago. I'm also going to file something to extend the case. I did call the attorney's office. Instead, was transferred to someone who asked for social security number and date of birth and told me I owe more than what was written in the lawsuit. I'm filing for a demur rather than motion to dismiss. I was told this doesn't answer the lawsuit. Anyway, I need some guidance. I'm retired on fixed income. For your information, I'm divorced, was able to get my former spouse's pension. Is that pension protected? Yes. Can I fax papers to you less the court forms? We don't represent people in court or give them advice how to defend a lawsuit. It's not what we do. Um, Now, if you're really excited to do that and you want to do that, you can do it. You don't need to do it because uh, your income is protected. If they get a judgment, they can't collect from you. A lot of our clients, the vast majority, don't want to get involved with the court system. You don't have to, and we can't represent you to give you ideas on how to defend the lawsuit. Okay, it's not what we do. Um, Probably don't need to do it. Most people doing what this person's doing, they would drive them crazy. But then some people get off on it. They just like, oh man. But that's very rare indeed. So if you don't want to defend a lawsuit, which you don't need to do, you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to defend the lawsuit. Get us to helps. We're going to send a letter saying, hey, take the judgment. Don't touch their income, and they're not going to be able to do anything. You don't need to worry. Does it? Does the fact that your direct deposit bank is the same one suing on the credit card? Well, it definitely does if it's a credit union. You'd want to get out of that credit union, or if it's Truist Bank. Other than that, there's a federal law because you gave them permission to take money out of your account if you owe them, but the other banks don't do that. And then there's a federal law that tells banks that they can't offset money out of your account to pay a debt you owe the bank unless you gave them permission to do it. Now, if you get money other than Social Security, they technically could, but we don't see the banks doing that. But if you're nervous about it, then just have your Social Security go to a different bank. It doesn't have to be the same bank. But if it's a bank that you've been relied on, that's geographically close to you, no reason why you couldn't use the same bank. We have emails that explain that. So it's been an hour. I'd like to thank you for participating. We're going to be here tomorrow at the same time. Remember, if you have any questions, call us toll free, 855-435-7787. Okay? And we'll go over this. You're going to be fine. So have a great day. And where's Sunset Cliff? I don't know. I'm used to him being at the beginning. He introduces me. So wherever you are, Sunset Cliff, we miss you today. God bless everyone. Be sure and call if you have a question. Don't want you to worry. Have a great day.